Welcome everybody to the final day of the 5-day challenge. So welcome to those. I know plenty of you are watching us on the replay, so thank you for being there. Get in touch if you have any questions. That's what I'm here for. And before we jump into today, the final day, where we're going to discuss communication today, but also the science of intuition and accessing that inner knowing, because that's a really valuable thing to be able to find your own voice amongst all the noise. But before we delve into it, Cherie, yesterday you and I caught up and we talked about, we talked about brainstorming. So how did you go with that? What happened last night? Did you do some brainstorming?
I did a little bit of brainstorming, but I mostly got into Facebook, asked for some nanny chats and au pair chats and things in my area to find out how I might be a nanny in the area and who needs someone. They also are talking to me right now. Actually, it's blinking, but I'm not answering about this. So they're going to let me know what kind of salary and benefits and things are with the different jobs. And then I also looked up having a career with children without the university degree, and I got all kinds of things on Indeed. I put in for 7 of those, and 3 have already contacted me back. So at this point, I also wanted to say one other thing. I rewatched yesterday, and I saw a change in me when we talked about children and about this kind of career. I saw that happiness and joy back that I haven't seen in so long. And even though my face is still drooping, you can tell I've had strokes and everything, I saw that life back that I haven't seen in a long time.
Oh,
so that meant a lot to me when I saw that.
Oh,
that was my turn to tears.
I'm like tearing up from hearing that. That's so beautiful. And I'm sure, could everyone else see that yesterday, those that were on? You lit up. And that's beautiful. I mean, yeah, if everyone just did if everyone just found themselves in a career that lit them up, just think about what the world would be. There's so many people that are in jobs that they hate, and they're taking a job from someone else that someone would actually love that. Because I'm sure there's some people that love admin. I mean, not me, but I know that there are people out there that just love being, like doing admin and that sort of stuff floats their boat. So now you've handed that opportunity over to someone and you're seeking out this. Awesome. And did you get a chance to chat to your family about this?
My son, yes. My husband, not yet.
Not yet.
He knows that I have that job lined up on the 8th, so I'm trying not to rock the boat with him at the moment, but I will talk to him this weekend, though.
Yeah, beautiful.
I think he'll see the joy, too, that he hasn't seen for a while.
Yeah, awesome. That is so good. That's great. Isn't that amazing? Like just, finding a pathway. I mean, and you've done this just by, I know that you've shown up each day. I know that you've been doing the exercises, and I mean, that's happened in under 5 days. That's 4 days worth of work for you. So awesome. Well done. That's super cool. Anyone else have any insights or anything that they wanted to share, any aha moments over this program, or any questions, anything that I've sort of shared that they can't work out how to apply it to their own life? Has anyone got anything like that? Nope. Okay, so you either all understand it perfectly, or I've confused the hell out of everyone. Wendy, can you unmute yourself? I'll just remute you, Cherie. How are you going, Wendy?
Good. Either today or in a different time, if you could just review the model behind you again.
I can do that for you right now. I can do this. Now, this model applies to so many areas of our life, like anything where you've got perception coming into play, any area of your life where there's a perception, this model, you can apply this model. Okay, so this model applies to communication. It applies to your own perception of things. It's something, it applies to your experience of anxiety or depression. So it's just a really useful model. So take note of it. I mean, even draw it down so that you've got it in your own notebook if you can see it. I'll go through it. So if you want to draw it as I'm doing it, anyone that's watching, this is a good model to have. I constantly come back to this when I'm working with people. I just have it sitting here in the background all the time. So we have a mind. Okay, for many of us, our mind is the boss, but really this process is actually allowing you to become the boss of your mind and to start using your mind as a tool, not just letting it run rampant. Okay. When your mind is balanced, it's at a 1-to-1 ratio. And what I mean by that is that you're looking at you're perceiving the world as having equal benefits to drawbacks. Okay. When you're perceiving the world as having equal benefits to drawbacks, you're at a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. That's when you're feeling very poised, you can see your purpose in your future, everything, and we have moments of that. You're not going to spend your whole life there. Okay. So I just want to bust that fantasy straight away. The purpose of this work is not to live there permanently. If you lived there permanently, I don't know, if you're a monk just meditating on a rock for your whole life, there's no purpose to your existence. We actually need these polarized emotions. Okay. Because when we have a hierarchy of values, we have things that are most important to us and things that are least important to us. And they also change over your life as well. What was important to you as a kid versus what's important to you now as an adult, they're different things, right? I mean, I remember thinking, when I grow up and I'm an adult and I'm making my own money, I'm just going to spend all my money on lollies. Who had that thought as a 5-year-old? We all did, right? And now that you're an adult, oh my God, no, you're not spending all your money on lollies. You're trying to keep them out of the house because you know that your priorities have changed. Health is a priority now, not just getting a sugar fix. So that's just a simple example that I'm sure you can relate to. So when we start to infatuate with something, okay, when and this is a symptom of the animal mind, when our animal mind gets polarized, our animal mind has impulse, and instincts, so when people go, oh, this was an impulse purchase, that's up there. Or my gut instinct told me to avoid that. Okay. Or, and we even have it in our terminology, always listen to your gut. Okay. But these are polarized emotions. Okay. I say, don't listen to your gut, your instinct. I say, bring yourself back to the center and access your inner knowing, access that inner knowing that is actually willing to embrace both sides. So when we infatuate, we go up here, and when you're just infatuating a little bit, you're like at a 2-to-1, you're seeing 2 benefits to 1 drawback. Now, if you ever want to know where your mind is, write down a person or a situation, maybe it's a new job. Cherie, this would be a good thing for you to do. You're infatuating with the job. Write down all the benefits of the new job, write down all the drawbacks of the new job, and just see where your ratios are. Just see where your ratios are, because that will tell you where you are on this polarized state. I sometimes do this with clients. I get them to list out the benefits and the drawbacks. And I know that if we're at a 7-to-1 on either side, that I've got my work cut out for me. Okay. In fact, I know that if they're sort of at a 7-to-1, that it's probably outside of my area of expertise. I generally work with people that are sort of more in this zone. And even though when you're feeling really polarized, when you are feeling like so polarized and so charged over something, you're probably actually only sitting at a 2 or 3 ratio. And that's the truth. Like, you are probably only sitting at a 2 or 3. Okay. The reason that my chart doesn't go beyond that is beyond 7-to-1, you're going into bipolar. So an 8-to-1 ratio becomes bipolar. Okay. It's harder for your intuition to guide you back to the center when you're in bipolar. And beyond a 15-to-1 is schizophrenia. Okay. So that's why I deal in this zone. This is my zone. Okay. Outside of that, that's for someone else. So when we're in here, we're seeking, our animal mind is seeking a dopamine fix and endorphins and all the rest of it. Our animal mind is looking for support and to infatuate with something and to avoid the challenge, to just avoid. So there's seek and avoid. Okay. Your executive center, when you actually engage your executive center, when you actually engage your higher mind, you stop operating from this animal part and you start engaging, more of your, I call it the angel mind. So this is your animal mind. This here is your angel mind. And your intuition is constantly getting you to come back to here. Your intuition is constantly trying to get you to find a homeostasis, trying to find you back here. Okay. Now, if you're not doing it naturally, if you're not actually taking the time to go, okay, I'm up here, I need to come back down, or I'm down here and I need to find my way back here. If you're not actually manually doing the work, like we're talking about this week, you will attract circumstances. You will create circumstances. You will label it as self-sabotage. Oh, I always self-sabotage myself. No, you don't. You've never self-sabotaged yourself. There's just part of your higher mind that's trying to get you to come back to this point so that you can focus on your purpose.
Excuse me, Donna.
Yes.
Bex just messaged me. She hasn't got the link.
Oh, I messaged, the broadcast should have gone out because it's a new link. Here, can you,
I've tried to send it from me.
oh, hang on, no, Bex entered the waiting room. She's entered the waiting room. For
She's
some
got-
reason. Yeah, the link, I had to, hi Beck. Thanks
Hi.
for coming. Hello, lovely to see you. I'm just
I've
going,
not been getting any of the messages with links.
oh, well, you mustn't have registered for the messenger then. So
I
just,
thought I had, but
Oh.
okay.
sorry.
All very dark, that's better.
Oh, good. Yeah. So this here is this when we engage in the animal mind, and when we are polarized and when we're doing things. So everything is conspiring to get you to live in alignment with your highest values. Okay, Cherie, your example was perfect. Every time you start a job or you go for a promotion, you have a stroke. Your body is actually giving you feedback to let you know that you're not on purpose. You're not living in alignment with your values. You're living outside of your values. You're living in this ratio in a job that you hate, just doing it for the money, but hate the job, but need to pay the bills, but I really don't like this job. It's sucking the life out of me. And boom, you find yourself, you know, like crazy stuff happens when you're living outside of your values, right? You know, and we kind of go, oh, like I'm a victim. Why does this always happen to me? You know, I'm always self-sabotaging, you know, things never work out for me. No, you're just not living in alignment with your highest values. You're not living in alignment with your true self. You're injecting other people's values about what you should be doing. You're taking on other people's belief systems and wondering why things aren't working out for you. Just a little bit, you know, if you just committed to just a tiny bit each day, whether it be taking a polarized emotion and bringing back to the center, you know, taking something that you're infatuated with and bringing it back down, spending a bit of time noticing what your values are, spending a bit of time clearing the things that are triggering you, maybe in communication, spending a bit more time communicating your values in terms of other people's values. You know, eventually you start spending more time here. And when you're spending more time in that zone, you're able to see what's happening up here. When you're spending time out here, this is super blurry. Okay, so don't beat yourself up. It's just, of course, it's going to be blurry. Okay, you're not taught this stuff in school. Okay, you've probably been raised by parents that spent their life out here. So how are you going to know this stuff? You know, like, you know, it's not you that's broken. You're working perfectly. It's just your operating system that needs an upgrade. That's all. You know, so don't ever think that about yourself. There's no reason to beat yourself up. There's no, yeah.
Could you go through the bottom section for the 1 to 2 downwards?
So this is when you're resenting something. So this is when you're looking at a situation or a relationship or a, you know, somebody's like an event, when you're perceiving through your senses that something is challenging you, you will start to go. So when we're just a little bit triggered, it might be a 1 to 2 relation, you know, one benefit to 2 drawbacks. Then we've got 1 benefit to 3 drawbacks. Then we've got one benefit to 4 drawbacks. And down here, so this is like, that's when you first fall in love with someone and you're like, oh my God, they're amazing. That's when you break up with them, where you're like, okay, there might be one good thing about you, but for each one good thing, I can find like, you know, 5 or 6 bad things about you. Okay. When in actuality, they are both sides. You know, they're both sides. It's just that when people challenge our values, or when an event or, you know, when we perceive our values being challenged, we will see it as bad. Okay. And when we've got unresolved stuff in our past, okay, first of all, you can't run from it. You can't run from it because you might get out. Who here has ever had a thing where they've like got out of a job because their boss was a real asshole, or got out of a relationship because that just wasn't working? It's their fault. It's their fault. And then you've gone and, you know, you've thought, oh yeah, this new situation will be better for me. And then lo and behold, in a couple of, you know, months or years, when the fantasy's worn off, you're like, how did I attract this same, there's different characters, but I'm in the same situation again. How did this happen? Has anyone had that happen to them? Like where they've got out because there's something like maybe in a relationship that was really annoying, or a boss. A job is a good one. I see those patterns repeat because it's not them. It's you. You keep given the opportunity to do the inner work, but you just keep avoiding it and going into like the next thing. So right now, if you're in a situation that's not working for you, before you throw in the towel, I'm not saying don't throw in the towel, but I'm saying before you do, just do a bit of work getting yourself to that center point so that you can transcend it and you can evolve past this revolution. So when you're here, you're in revolution. Like when you're trying to avoid certain situations, seek other situations. When you're in this seek and avoid cycle, you're in revolution. When you actually take the time to bring yourself back to the center, whether it be bringing this back down or bringing this back up, you graduate, you go from pre-primary into grade 1, and you've got your next set of challenges. And each time you do it, you evolve. So this is evolution. This is how we evolve as a human species. You know, and no different to what's going on in the world right now. Until we learn as a species to love both sides of the chaos that's happening in the world, we will keep repeating the cycles. You know, history does repeat until collectively as a species, we learn to love both sides, that we can see how that actually served us in our evolution in humanity. That wasn't something bad that we have to avoid. That's actually something that benefited us. Okay, and that's how we break the cycle as humanity, you know, as a collective as well. It's the same system. It's the same system. You can apply it to anything. Roberta, does that give you a bit more clarity? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to communication,
The bottom bit, I was like,
well, communication is the same. So I'll apply this model because communication was what we were talking about today. Rhonda, thanks for jumping on. Lovely to see you. So when this comes to communication, it's the same. This there is a very heart-to-heart communication where your values and your needs are being met, and the other person's values and needs are being met in the communication. And you're feeling, you know, sometimes you just click with people and you're like, they just get me and I just get them. Okay. Like we've all had that experience, right? And then we've also had these other experiences where like, oh, I just felt like I was walking on eggshells. So that's when you're down there and you're putting their values above yours. You're putting their values on a pedestal. You're putting your values in a pit, and you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to upset their values. But you're walking on eggshells because it is incongruent with you. Okay. So that, oh yeah, I'm just admitting. So that is when you're walking on eggshells. Up here, when you're projecting your values, okay, we do this to our kids a lot. When we're making our values more important than the person that we're communicating with, and we're projecting our values. When you are projecting your values, you will hear yourself say should a lot, okay? You should be doing this. You should be doing that, okay? That's when you hear. So when you're saying should a lot, you're projecting values. When you're hearing should a lot, somebody's trying to project onto you, okay? Now, both of them are polarized in communication. If it was in sales, let's use sales as an example, because you all would have had an example when you've walked into a shop and the salesperson's like told you, you need to buy this because, and you're like, whoa, don't tell me what to do. Like, you know, you haven't even listened to what I want. That salesperson is being careless. Okay. On the flip side, you know, have you walked into a shop before where the salesperson's like, and if you take this, and I'll give you this as well, and I can also give you some discount, and like, please buy this from me today, you know, like, please, please, please. They're putting themselves down here and they're giving everything away because they're putting you on a pedestal and they're putting themselves down there. Okay, that's equally kind of repelling, right? But if you've ever been in a situation where the salesperson sat down with you and gone, what is it that you need? What do you need this product for? What's your lifestyle like? Like, tell me a bit about, you know, how much money do you have to spend? What do you need this to do? You know, like, let me see if I can give you a couple of options that I think are going to be a really good fit, and I'll share with you the reason why. That's the salesperson that you go, oh, thank you. Thank you for solving my problem. Thank you for listening. Thank you for communicating what you want, which is a sale, in terms of what I want, which is having my needs met. And that's a perfect match. You know, that's when we walk away feeling satisfied. And so that's caring. Careless when we project our values, careful when we're walking on eggshells, caring. Okay. So when you're communicating with someone, get to know their values, get to know their value system. Okay. If communication is not working for you right now, take a look. First of all, was it hard for you to work out your own values? Can you see what that other person's value system is? And communicate what you want in terms of what they want. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, you get your pen and paper out and you write down what it is that you want to communicate to that other person. And then you just write down, how is that outcome a benefit to them? So Cherie, let's use you as an example. When you're communicating your new career path with your husband, you just write down, I would love to work with children and not take on this other job. How is that a benefit to my husband? Well, you might go, well, for starters, if I'm inspired, you know, that's only going to be a benefit to my health. So how is me being healthy a benefit to my husband? Well, it means that, you know, he's not going to all of a sudden, you know, get called up and I'm in emergency and I've had another stroke. That's a benefit to him. You know, and you list all the benefits to your husband of you taking on this job. It might take 10, 20, however, when you go, this is a benefit to me, but damn, this is a benefit to them as well. That's when you're ready to communicate. And then you don't need to necessarily think about what you say, because you're coming from that higher mind. You're coming from a sense of purpose, and the words will just flow out of you. Okay, you don't need to articulate and have your conversation and your argument all mapped out. It will just naturally come. Okay, does that make sense to everyone, what I've shared just there? Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, so next we're going to talk about instinct, impulse, and intuition, okay? Because in modern language, the reason that this is important, because I think in modern language, we often mistake running on an impulse and an instinct as actually running on our intuition, and they're actually two different things, okay? So this is super important. At the beginning of the week, I said I will show you the roadmap on how to access your inner knowing. And I think I even shared the quote with you that when the voice on the inside is louder and more prominent than the opinions on the outside, you've begun to master your life. Okay, that is not possible when you're living in that zone, because when you're living in that zone, you're more prone. You're prone to living in polarized emotions. So you'll be experiencing fear, shame, and guilt. Okay, those will be the predominant emotions that are running around. Okay, when you're in this zone, you start to, you have the feeling of feeling inspired, of feeling grateful, you know, of feeling enthusiastic. So those are the more centered feelings. Out here, we've got the emotions that are running us. Okay. And there's kind of a distinction between them. Like feeling grateful and feeling inspired and feeling enthusiastic. Can you feel how they're not really emotions, that they're more just a felt sense? So when you're feeling that way, that's the time to ask your inner self for guidance. That's the time to ask the questions. When you're out here, work out what the emotion is and clear it. I gave you some tools yesterday. And for those that are planning on joining for the 10-week course, we drill down into each of those so that you can start using this on a daily, you know, in a daily thing. By the way, it's not like a case of you have to get your pen and paper out each day and journal for hours and hours, because we've all got lives, right? Okay, myself included. I often just do it as I'm driving somewhere. If I'm stuck in traffic, instead of going, oh my God, you know, like who here has ever got stuck in traffic and got frustrated? I now go, great, I've got a great opportunity. Now I can work on some stuff that I, you know, hadn't had a chance to do. Great. I'm stuck in traffic. I've got an extra half an hour up my sleeve. Now I can actually work on some things that I didn't have time to. Of course, that's assuming that my kids aren't sitting in the back seats. But, you know, it means that you can start to look for opportunities in your life and integrate this into your daily life. If you start to find ways to integrate this into things that you're already doing, you know, maybe you're taking your dog for a walk, maybe you're having a shower, taking your makeup off at the end of the day. These are all times where your mind's sort of running idle, that you can actually start utilizing these processes and start spending more time, because the more time you spend in there, the more you access your inner knowing. Okay. Where am I up to? We're talking, okay, so when you're, what story have I got? When it comes to inner knowing, I can really only share my own stories, okay, because it's an experience that you just have. For me to sort of sit here and try to articulate me sharing someone else's experience of inner knowing. Although, Rhonda, you might have a good one. Remember when you bumped your head on the coffee table and all of a sudden you had this epiphany? That was a good one. You can share that if you want to in a moment. I'll just share with you a story that I had when I needed to access my inner knowing. I didn't need to. Leading up to having my baby girl. She's 11 months old. Time flies. She's 11 months and 3 days old. And we did IVF for, you know, to have both of our kids. And I remember when I remember just like, I'd done a lot of mindset work for Floyd. That happened first go. And I just remember the nurses were like, it never happens twice straight off the bat. So just get that expectation out of your head. But I was like, it's possible. It could happen first go. And I'd already said to my husband, if it's you know, we had a couple of embryos. I said, if it doesn't work, then that's it. I'm not going through the whole big process again. So anyway, we go in and they implant, you know, they do the implantation, and then you've got to wait for 2 weeks. That is the longest 2 weeks of your whole entire life when they do that implantation to, you know, because you've got so much riding on it, and they've just pumped you with an insane amount of hormones. And what happens when we're hormonal? We're out here, you know, we start making up fantasies and stories about it's not going to work, it's definitely going to work. You know, you're on a roller coaster already. And I remember coming up to, I think it was about 9 days, you get tested at 14 days. They do a blood test. And I remember about 9 or 10 days, I was like, oh, I'm pretty close. Okay, I'll just cheat. I'll just cheat and pee on the stick. And it's come up negative. And I've gone, oh my God. So I've jumped into bed and I was so anxious. I was like, God, if we just gone through that whole process and it hasn't worked, and, you know, like story. And I was so anxious. I was like, I feel like I was about to like flip inside out. The anxiety was just overwhelming because I was like, it can't have not worked. It can't have not worked. So I got up out of bed. I didn't want to disturb my husband. And I got up and I went into the lounge room and I was like, no, Donna, there's an inner knowing here and you've got to access that. I just reminded myself that there's a part of you that knows what the truth is. You know, maybe this is part of your journey for this not to work, and maybe it's not. So let's start to bring yourself back. Now, in this particular moment, the first thing that I did was I actually just got really centered. Now, if you're feeling anxious, one of the other things as well is when you're inside your body, it's more challenging to feel anxiety. Okay, it's much more challenging. And so in that moment, I got really centered. I've done this work a lot. So I actually just imagined my mind coming back to the center, dropping into my heart. And I remember just touching the earth. And all of a sudden I got this download that said, and it was in my voice. So I wasn't like crazy hearing voices inside my head. I got this voice that said, you will get your baby girl. And then I felt this massive calm come over me. I went back to bed. I slept. And in 2 days later, or 3 days later, when I went to the doctor and they messaged me, or they rang me and they said, good news, you're pregnant. And I was like, great, I've got my little girl. And I said to Phil, it's a baby girl. He's like, how do you know? I know. I got the message. I accessed my inner knowing because all of the information is available to you, but it's not when you're out here. If you're out there, the information is, you're going to get very limited snippets. You're going to feel, when you're feeling polarized, you will look for stories to add. You will look for stories to add to confirm your bias on whichever side it is. So if you're feeling not good enough, you'll start to look for evidence that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Okay. Have you all done that before? You know, when you're feeling a particular way. Oh, hey Claire, nice to see you on. Oh, both of you Claires have just jumped on. You've got the kids in the back telling them to shut up. That's great. Hi Claire, the other Claire. So that's what's possible when you can access that inner knowing. But you've got to do the work out here first. Okay, so right now, if you're feeling that your intuition is not the most dominant and prominent voice in your life, okay, if you notice your behaviors are running on impulse, and also get to know your own behaviors. Get to know your own behaviors. I know my behaviors. If I find myself mindlessly walking through a shopping mall buying shit that I don't need, I go, hang on, get back to the drawing board, Donna. Don't pull that credit card out, pop that back. That's my trigger. Notice what your triggers are. You might have a different trigger. You might have, you know, pulling out a glass of wine that you didn't want, you know, snacking on a bag of chips that you didn't want. You might find